orthomarketing.com. 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.
Well, hello everybody in podcast land. This is Dean Steinman, and guess what? We are back with another podcast for you. That's right. And very, 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 very excited to have back one of my favorite people in the whole entire world. All right, I got my partner in crime, my PIC, on my right hand, John Iuzzini, who is a director of accounts here at Ortho Marketing, and we're here to talk today about not one, not two, but three cardinal rules when working with an agency. Johnny, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. Coming out of a long and grueling winter. We've had the weather in the 70s the past couple of days, so see the light at the end of the tunnel there.
All right. As the great George Harrison said, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter.
Oh yeah.
But we're back. All right, so we're gonna jump right into it, Johnny. So, you've been with us for a long time at Ortho Marketing here, and you've seen a lot of changes going on. So right now, in the middle of 2026, all right, we're gonna talk about three most important things that you need to embrace as a dentist or orthodontist when working with an agency. And if you're not working with an agency, you should be. All right, focus on what you do best. Focus on changing people's lives, making them smile better, changing the way they feel about themselves. So we're going to talk about the three most important things for a practice and what you need to do to embrace change, embrace technology, and embrace your partnership with us or anybody else out there. Because you should be working with an agency. So Johnny, the first rule that a practice has to understand is, in my eyes, correct if I'm wrong, is you have to have a budget. You can't just sit back and hope that people are going to find you. Now, you'd have to be aggressive and get your name out there. So, what advice would you give a practice if they're trying to figure out how to come up with a budget and what's a good budget and how to see if it works?
Yeah, Dean. So it's pay to play. You need to pay to get seen. So you need to make sure that you have a budget that allows you to be shown where and when you need to be, in front of your ideal audiences. So, I mean, orthodontics is extremely competitive, saturated. So, if you're not running, Google ads and meta ads, if you're not being put out of there, your competitors are. So what we do to kind of help, create that game plan for you is we do competitor research. We take a look at your areas. We take a look at your demographics. We see that competitive space and we can see what people are running. So we're going to know, based on the research that we do, what you need to run in terms of a budget, in terms of staying competitive, being seen. And, as the competitive landscape between Meta and Google are just so different. When it comes to Google, it's an auction. So you can easily get outbid if you don't have the correct budget. So we need to make sure that, you're being seen and that people really know what you offer. And obviously that you're being, put out there in the right light.
Right. How did you even come up with the right budget for a practice? Because the last thing you want to do is spend too little, because it's wasting money. So if a practice is going to say, if you're in LA and you're spending $1,500, $2,000 a month, don't bother. It's going to, it'll be just not going to get the results out of it. So, but at the same time, you don't have to spend $20,000 either. So how do you actually figure out the right budget for the practice?
Yeah. So, like I said, earlier, it really comes down to the competitive research. So once we put you in the program, just like anything else, right? It's an algorithm and it's an AI back there in terms of like Google and Meta ads. So, your first, 60 to 90 days is a real test period. We have a base that we put out there for, your budgets. And what we'll do is, in the first couple of weeks, Google's program will let us know some feedback based on how the ads are running. So we can see if you need to kind of fluctuate with your budget, if you need to increase, if you need to decrease, if it's just right. But essentially, we're going to get insights from the program as we start running the ads. But usually, like I said, we start with a base and then we can kind of fluctuate from there. but they might tell us that our ads are restricted by budget. So, and then what we would do is we would come back to you and we would say, hey, it says we're being restricted by budget. Your competitors are spending a lot more. We need to increase. Because again, when it comes down to that, it's mostly an auction. So we want to make sure that you're winning those bids, that you're getting those high intent keywords, say like, braces, Invisalign, orthodontist near me. We want to make sure that you're getting found for those things. We don't want to get outbid. And again, we just want to make sure that your ad is getting the impressions that they are needed to get in order to get those clicks, to get those booked appointments, and to get those starts.
Awesome. All right, so now let's talk about, that's a perfect segue into booked appointments. At Ortho Marketing, we're really good at getting you found, and then getting people to show up and get the, we say, butts in the seats. But then from there, what does a practice need to do in order to then take things to the next level? Because there's so many no-shows now, and and you have to respond immediately. So if you need one bit of advice to a practice to adapt to change in technology, what would you say they should do? Because you can't, it's not old school anymore. You can't just have a spreadsheet, or you can't just respond to a lead 3 hours later or 3 days later and leave a voicemail and expect it to work. So, what's one bit of advice you give a practice, in order to look at what they're doing now and say, wow, this isn't working, and to change?
I could talk about this for hours. I really could. But when it comes down to it, you really have to make sure that your process is buttoned up. It's all about that speed to lead. So when it comes down to it, somebody fills out a form on your website, you want to make sure that you're getting back to that person, within the first 5 minutes. And then the same thing, if you miss a call, you want to get back to them immediately. So we're talking about threes today. So when it comes down to it, you need to remember, they're not just going to be contacting your practice alone. They're contacting at least 2 to 3 other practices as well. So you need to make sure that you're getting back to them. So if you get back to somebody the next day, think about it. You don't get a call back. You're chasing them down. They definitely called somebody else. They already got on the calendar. They don't want to be the bearer of bad news.
Right. So at Ortho Marketing, we have automation CRM program in place called Smile Hub, and that's kind of what we do. Is we take that out of the hands of practice. So many practices, as John just said, will leave a voicemail and say, it's a bad lead. But no, you got to call them, text them, email them, follow up constantly. We did this 8 times in 8 days, and we have to continually reach out to people. Great stat that we have here is, so we handle this for a lot of practice, and we handle all of the leads and phone calls and everything. And last month, 58% of the appointments that we booked for practices took 4 or more touch points. All right, 4 or more. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can you afford to lose 58% of your potential new business because you don't have a process in place? So, how would you suggest a practice to do that? And as far as following up, just old school, do they have a spreadsheet and just leave a voicemail, or how do they do it? Or should they be looking at integrating technology?
Technology, 100%. So Smile Hub is fantastic. Our clients here at Ortho Marketing use this with ease. And when it comes down to it, if you don't have the manpower to give that person a call right away, our system is going to be sending out nurture emails, nurture texts on a daily basis. And then on top of that, say you miss a call, you get a form in, our system will actually call your staff and connect you to that lead right there and then. So it's pretty fantastic. But it's not only that, right? I mean, say we pass that point, say we book the appointment, like you were talking about earlier, Dean, right? There's practices that complain of no-shows and things like that, right?
Right.
Now, I work with a lot of different practices. Now, again, it's about being upfront and as real and giving that 5-star service, for the patients that are coming into your practice. Now, if you book somebody and, you are giving them reminders for their appointment, and the only thing that you're sending it out to them is a text or an email when it comes to reminding them about that appointment, you're dropping the ball. We find that an actual touch point, like a call, is really going to make the difference there.
This podcast is sponsored by orthomarketing.com. In a crowded market, how does your practice stand out? If you're a dentist or orthodontist looking for a competitive edge, Ortho Marketing is your solution. We aren't just another agency, we are the industry's choice for specialized digital marketing. We understand the unique challenges of your field and specialize in one thing: growth. Our experts will optimize your website and leverage social media to build real connections with your community. We don't just get clicks, we get patience. Say goodbye to empty chairs and watch your patient list grow with a strategy built specifically for your success. Visit orthomarketing.com to get started. Ortho Marketing. It's not just our name, it's what we do.
It's not a you don't want to remind them, you want to confirm with them. All right, you have to have a two-way communication. By just sending an email or a text out and saying you have an appointment tomorrow at 10 a.m. with Dr. Jones, that's not going to make sure they show up. But if you actually make sure they do something and respond back, yes, I'll be there, or call and say, yes, I'll be there, you have a much, much, much higher chance of getting them to show up, because the no-show rate is astronomical now for practices because you push booking out so far ahead. So in order to get them in, you have to confirm it, not remind them. And that's real important. And again, that's where the technology comes in. This is taken care of for you guys. Focus on it. And now the last part, John, in my eyes, and probably one of the most important, is your TC, is your staff. You can't just put somebody in there and just hope they get it. This is a really high-end sales job, is what that is. So, what bit of advice, again, would you give a practice to make sure that their treatment coordinator is up to snuff and getting in? Because once somebody's in that seat, unless they can't afford it or have to get insurance verification or haven't been to the dentist in 2 years, do not let them leave, okay? Because you get them there. Picture yourself at a car dealership. Are they going to let you leave? No, they understand sales and understand salesmanship and trying to overcome objections. So what bit of advice would you give a practice for that, instead of just putting just some girl in place that's never done this before? How can we help a practice, or how can a practice help themselves by understanding the importance of the treatment coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways that you can slice this. So when it comes down to it, inside the practice, you need to make sure that the doctor and the TC are bonded like this with the information in terms of, what they need to sell, a new patient. When it comes down to it, I have seen the disconnects where, a doctor, might listen to a call, or they might look at the records and say, well, why did you say that this person needs to come back in for this? We could have done that. So when it comes down, they need to be on the same page, because the doctor may see something that the TC doesn't see and said, we could have easily started that person. They walked out the door.
Right.
So
most important, in my eyes, the most important person besides the doctor in the practice is the TC. It is getting this new blood in. A dentist is very different. The lifetime value of a dental patient is very high. Somebody could be worth, 6 figures over the course of a lifetime, because they come in for implants, veneers, laminates, cleanings for 15 years, whatever it is. Orthodontists, you're coming in, you're getting Invisalign, you're getting your braces, and that's it. So you need to obviously get referrals and work off it. But one person, once they're in treatment, it's going to be hard to upsell them some more or get them to have more services. So, the life of any, orthodontic practice or any dental practice that offers orthodontics is your treatment coordinator and getting new butts in the seats there. So, how involved is a doctor, or should be, when it comes to their TC? Because they're busy, but they have no choice but focus on this. So how important is it, and how much time should a doctor be focusing on with the treatment coordinator?
The doctor and the treatment coordinator should be having huddles once a week, so they can look at the opportunities to see what they missed, what they closed on, so they can come up on game plan, so they can understand, well, why didn't X amount of patients start, so they can actually see those opportunities, and they can come up with game plans to actually overcome those opportunities in the future. I mean, I get it. The doctor's doing a lot. The doctor's, seeing all the patients, checking in on, all of these different cases. So it's a lot for them. So I've noticed a lot of, orthodontic business owners do get out of touch. And then sometimes when they, take a magnifying glass and look in, they say, what's going on? So you really want to make sure that you're super close to your TC,
right?
Because you might say, dang, we could have started, 5 or 6, patients in the last 2 weeks, if you just had this information from me. So they need to be tight.
I think about that, just 6 patients, that's $6,000 right there is 36,000. That's for 2 weeks. You get that times 2, you got 70-something thousand. That's almost $1 million of business. $1 million, extrapolated over the course of the year, just by having your hands in the pot and making sure that things are moving the right way. And she's up to snuff on the up-to-date processes when it comes to, sales, comes to communication, come to customer service, and getting them in and making them feel comfortable. You're in the smile business. You're in the aesthetic business. Your job is to show results, and that is a very hard thing to do. But if you have somebody in that chair, all right, it never should be about price. It's about results and the communication that you have there, and how important it is for them to feel comfortable, in the office. John, so if in closing, if you had to give whoever's listening to this one bit of advice, and if they're looking, if they're not checking off all 3 of these boxes with a company they're working with now, what should they do?
Honestly, like we're talking about here, agency help will lift that weight off of your shoulders.
Right.
And working with an automated system like we have, like Smile Hub,
right.
You have 2 people in the office. This will be like adding an army. So it will really stack your team. And when it comes down to it, we also have our in-house call center, so we can actually see what's being booked, because we're booking it, and then at the same time we can let you know your opportunities, because we'll be able to see booked versus starts, so we can let you know those lists of people that you need help with, and we can reactivate them for you.
Exactly. We just need to help you. Need to help us help you. In practice, we just didn't update it for us. The next thing you know, we saw a potential $500,000 of business in there, because they haven't updated it in the last month. We went in and did it, and we got a ton of people back in, because we were able to just push the button and know what to say to them. So the more you help your agency, the more that they can help you. So, in closing, Johnny, if you were to tell everybody out there in podcast land, why they should be calling Ortho Marketing today, what would you say to them?
It's simple. We're super white glove with our clients. We really get down into the nitty gritty. It's like having, again, one of our people a part of your team. It's just so up close and personal. We know who you are. You're calling the same person every time for advice. You get a dedicated account manager. Again, that person has been compared as adding a staff member to help get insights on your work, and then obviously, just show you your ROI. We're very transparent with those things.
All right, so appreciate it. Great. All right, so everybody, thank you so much. Hopefully, just check off your these checks here, and look at what you work with an agency. Do you have the right budget in place? Are you getting a good return on investment? Do you have automation and technology in place? And is your staff helping them help you? And is your staff doing the right job? If not, reach out to us, Ortho Marketing. We'd love to help you, talk to you, see if we have the right ability to work with you. Sometimes it's not a good match, and you're good with where you are, and we can at least show you that. But what do you got to lose? So, Johnny, thank you so much for all the insight. I appreciate it. Everybody in podcast land, thank you so much always for all the response, following us, and all the comments. We love it. Everybody out there, peace out.
Orthomarketing.com. 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.